Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Yo, what up, Bolt fam? It's the director. Chargers fans, we have arrived. Chargers football is here. Can you feel it?
Oh, I could feel it.
Oh man, what an offseason this has been. One of the most exciting in my time as a Chargers fan, from the additions of Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson, an amazing draft, an overhaul of this team. It's all bubbling to the surface now, baby. The Chargers in their revenge game versus the Vegas Raiders will be taking the field with a brand new look, and honestly one that carries so much potential and expectations. This is going to be big, man. What a way to kick off the season to none other against the Vegas Raiders. Another Vegas Raiders week for the Chargers. It's going to be big, man. And these are going to be the games, dude. This is going to be one of the most important games of the year already because, of course, division games are just going to hit that much harder in 2022. This division is loaded. Both these teams are loaded and dangerous. But in the end, I do think the Chargers will get the revenge. So in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at this matchup, some of the important elements to keep an eye on versus the Raiders, as well as my score prediction and other storylines as we get into it. Before we do get started, guys, I do have an announcement. We are kicking off the first giveaway on the channel this season. To celebrate kickoff, we are giving away this signed Antonio Gates jersey to one of my lucky subscribers. All you got to do is hit up the link in the description, follow the instructions there. Super simple, but make sure you are also subscribed. Only subs can win. But you guys know I love doing giveaways in twos, so we're also giving away this signed LaDainian Tomlinson jersey to one of my crew members. Again, as a thank you from me to you guys for continuing to support the channel even through the off season. All you got to do to be entered for this one is just be a member of my crew. That's it. I'll be drawing a winner here in the next few weeks. Also, before we get started, guys, question in the comments like we always do. Simple one this week. Will Khalil Mack log a sack this game? And if he does, how many? Boy, if you're Derek Carr right now, you're shaking in your boots. And with that, let's get into this one. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub. If you do enjoy this Chargers content, small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it, baby. Raiders week. Lights, camera, action. Your Chargers versus Raiders week 1 game preview. We've arrived, baby. Let's go. To kick off the video like we always do, we're going to be starting things off with our injury report. We're getting back in the groove of things, man. The regular season's here, and these are the format of the videos. Let's start things off here with the Chargers, of course. This will probably be the most closely monitored storyline when it comes to the Chargers before kickoff, and that's the status of cornerback J.C. Jackson, one of the biggest acquisitions of the offseason regardless of team. And as of today, we haven't heard anything. I am recording this on Friday. We haven't heard any updates to JC taking the field in practice. However, and this is more just kind of like, you know, hearing around the room, whispers in the wind, we have heard that the boot is off of JC Jackson. He's been sprinting around, running around, feeling great. So I think there's still a chance that he could take the field on Sunday, but as of right now, his status is still very much so up in the air, and that could change what the Chargers decide to do defensively. If I'm Brandon Staley, I have to imagine he's going to want to err on the side of caution, so maybe we do not see JC this week. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes his debut with the Chargers on Sunday nonetheless. Outside of that, you got Donald Parham, who's still not practicing due to a hamstring injury, and then the return possibly of Isaiah Spiller, who has been practicing in full since Wednesday. Other than that, I got nothing for you guys. The Vegas Raiders do not have any injuries to report. These are the guys to be keeping an eye on in JC, Donald Parham, and Isaiah Spiller. And with that, let's get into the nitty-gritty, to the meat and potatoes of this matchup. Some of the things to keep an eye on throughout the week 1 game for the Chargers. And of course, the Raiders being one of those teams that, again, very important that the Chargers, especially in division games, try and take care of business, hit the ground running, and try to find some momentum early. And the first aspect of this game, of course, we got to talk about is Justin Herbert, the Raider Slayer. You know, I saw something on Twitter a couple of days ago talking about how impressive Justin Herbert has been versus the Raiders in his short career so far. Of course, only 4 games played against the Raiders. He's been absolutely fantastic. As a matter of fact, we're going to be referencing this website a little bit throughout the season. I love this new site, guys. If you haven't checked it out, StatMuse. Pretty much grab whatever you want in terms of statage, and we did grab Justin Herbert's career stats versus the Raiders. Of course, he's only played 4 games so far, and he's been absolutely astounding in his history versus this team. 1,245 yards, 10 touchdowns to 1 interception in just 4 games so far versus the Raiders. Oh, if you're a Raiders fan, man, I mean, you got to at least respect that, right? If not be quivering in fear of what Justin Herbert could do in week 1, because Herbert historically has really come off, or gotten off to a very hot start in the early part of the season. And right now, I do expect something very similar. He's been averaging, 311 yards, 2.5 touchdowns per game. He's been astounding. He's been unreal. And I do think the Chargers, in their home opener at their home stadium, after what happened at the tail end of last season, Justin Herbert's going to get ready to go out there and put on a show. Herbert's going to be one of those guys, a deciding factor in whether or not the Chargers can overcome the difficult AFC West. And I do think he's very much so up to the challenge, especially versus a team like the Vegas Raiders. On the other side, I don't have the stat up, but I do think Derek Carr averages something like 211 yards or something like that versus the Chargers, maybe 1.4 touchdowns. Definitely not as impressive. I do think it could come down to the quarterback play and whether or not, the Chargers or the Raiders can take a win in this one. So Justin Herbert, he's the one, man. And the Raiders Slayer so far, he's really been putting on a show versus Vegas. Now, speaking of a player that's been putting on a show versus Vegas, man, this guy, it's actually kind of unreal the kind of numbers he's been producing versus the Raiders the last couple of seasons. And it's going to be Austin Ekeler. This dude's been a freaking monster versus the Raiders the last couple of seasons. If you guys drafted this dude in fantasy football, which update, I actually did end up trading for Austin Ekeler in my main, 11-year league, because I know the potential of Austin Ekeler. Even if he does see a slight decrease in production, I think he's going to find himself a lot of success in his week 1 matchup for sure. And that's because this guy, over the past couple of seasons, in playing the last 3 games, has been astounding. He's put up 300. So right now at the top, you're going to see 241 yards. That was just on the ground rushing, and 4 touchdowns in 3 games. You combine his stats, which will actually go down right here. You guys will see his receptions and his carries, his touchdowns, everything there. In total yardage, Austin Ekeler's put up 323 yards and 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games versus Vegas. This is since 2020, of course, missing 1 game due to injury. Absolutely insane. That's an average of 170 total yards and 1.3 touchdowns per game. Austin Ekeler has been one of the most consistent. Him and Justin Herbert, these guys together have been some of the most consistent producers versus Vegas in the last couple of seasons, and I don't expect things to change this week. I think Austin Ekeler and Justin Herbert put up an awesome performance versus Vegas, and I do think Austin Ekeler is going to be a big reason why the Chargers put up some big points this week. I wouldn't put it past Austin Ekeler to score 2 total touchdowns this week and go for over 100 yards. As a matter of fact, I didn't give you guys any sort of projection for Justin Herbert either. I do think Justin Herbert goes for over 300 yards this game and does put up at least 2 touchdowns. So there you go, man. Austin Ekeler and Justin Herbert, these guys, these are the ones to lean on offensively for the Chargers this week. But it's not over yet, because the Chargers do have more weapons on offense that we need to address. Starting here with Mr. Mike Williams and the receivers. Of course, him and Keenan Allen. The Chargers do have one of the better duos in the NFL when it comes to the wideout position. Mike Williams kind of be the guy, though, that I'm looking for this week. He's going to be faced, because it really does come down to matchups. And, of course, the Raiders, if they do have a weakness on defense, it's going to be that secondary. That secondary's been looking shaky for a couple of seasons, and going against a guy like Justin Herbert, you're going to find guys that are going to get open. And I think, again, Mike Williams is the guy who I feel has the favorable matchup this week. He's going to be facing Anthony Everett this week, who graded very, very poorly last year. As a matter of fact, outside the top 90 of quarterbacks, 90 of cornerbacks last season. That's not good. And you add on top of that Mike Williams, he towers over this dude. Everett is a 5'11" to Mike Williams 6'4". I do expect a couple of dunks on Everett this week, and I do think Mike Williams did prove that he's capable of coming off to a hot start. As last season, he was really dominant in the early 4, 5, even 6 weeks in the 2021 year. So I think Mike Williams puts up around 80 yards and a score this week. He's going to be the receiver that I'm really looking forward to trouncing on the Raiders as far as a weapon for Justin Herbert. But there is another guy. There's another guy that I'm pretty high on this week, and one that, at least in recent history, tells us could really pop off in week 1 versus this particular opponent. Can you guys guess it? It's going to be Gerald Everett, of all players on the Chargers. With Austin Ekeler, who I obviously think is going to be popping off. With the receivers, Keenan and Mike Williams, I think those guys have a pretty decent day. I think it's Gerald Everett that could surprise people this week. I think he could end up being the dude. Because Justin Herbert, for one, he does love his tight ends, especially when facing the Vegas Raiders. But last season, if you take a look at what the Chargers implemented on offense to combat the Raiders, they got the tight end very much so involved. Last year, we had Jared Cook, who scored, or I think he put up 70 yards and 80 yards in each of his games versus the Raiders in 2021, while also adding a touchdown. And that's Jared Cook that we're talking about. Sure, the guy was pretty good, but he was up there in age, man. The Chargers got a brand new young stud weapon of a tight end in Gerald Everett, who is absolutely another receiving weapon for Justin Herbert. If I'm the Chargers, I'm putting Gerald Everett in the limelight this week and saying, hey, man, we like to attack the Raiders with our tight end weapons. You're going to be a guy this week. You're going to see some targets. I think in each of those games last year, Jared Cook did get 7 targets in each one of those games. I would expect Gerald Everett to see somewhere around the same realm of targets, maybe somewhere 5, 6 receptions for close to, let's say, 70, 80 yards, and maybe even a score this week. So keep an eye on Gerald Everett. Again, the Chargers love themselves some tight ends versus Vegas. Everett could start the year off definitely with a bang. Now let's get on to the defensive side of the ball before we talk a little bit about the Raiders, too. We got to definitely address that. But I think the biggest thing people want to talk about first when they even click on this video is going to be the Chargers edge rushers versus the Vegas Raiders. Bosa and Mack strike back. You guys want to know a fun fact? Last season, Joey Bosa, he forced a fumble in both of his matchups versus the Raiders. He logged a sack in both of his matchup versus the Raiders. He's going to have himself a pretty good day, I have to imagine. This is going to be the first time that we get to see the magic happen on that defensive line in terms of the edge position players, right? You're going to have Joey Bosa, who for the first time in a long time is going to see those one-on-one matchups pretty consistently, because what are they going to do with Khalil Mack on the other side? Which, again, Khalil Mack, this dude's been hungry, dude. I can tell that this man's going to want to, order a number 5 carb burger with a side of fries, man. This dude really has been itching to get out there, and who else better to get after than the guy he started his career with in Derek Carr? I don't know, man, or I should say the team at least. It's going to be very, very fun to see this unit get to work. And in terms of what the Raiders are working with on their offensive line, this is the team that just traded away Alex Leatherwood a couple of days ago because he couldn't make the cut. And that guy was a first-round pick. That just really speaks to how shaky this offensive line has looked all off season long. It was a weakness of theirs last year. It's a weakness, probably their biggest weakness coming into the season this year. You add Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack to the mix, I think something truly special is about to happen. I think Chargers fans, myself included, probably the biggest thing I've been looking forward to this year, are definitely very excited to see this duo get to work, and I think they're going to get their first look at the kind of damage a Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack combo can create, especially versus a team that has such a poor offensive line. So I'm going to say the Chargers get like 3 or 4 sacks this week, man. I think Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack both log 1 each at least. And I do think Joey Bosa is going to be the guy that kind of stands above everybody, says, hey, man, when I've got a guy opposite me like Khalil Mack, things are going to get crazy. So Bosa and Khalil Mack, dudes, that's probably the biggest thing I'm looking forward to watching in the week 1 matchup. But we also got to talk about next year. We got to talk about the edge rushers opposite the Chargers for the Vegas Raiders, because this is something that the Chargers definitely need to equally take as serious. Because if the Raiders got better in a couple categories, being, wide receiver, the other one's got to be that edge position where they did add a Chandler Jones. So this segment's going to be called Pipkin's Gone Mad, Mr. Jones. Now, of course, the biggest, I would say, name on their line that we got to talk about is Mad Max, dude. This guy, Max Crosby, he's the real deal. If we're going to be, paying credit where credit's due, Mad Max is a very, very good football player, and he's going to be going up against none other than Trey Pipkins, who I have to believe did win that right tackle battle. But unfortunately, I don't know how much I'm confident in him facing a Mad Max again. You guys do remember that last matchup, Storm Norton. I think this is the most appropriate photo I could have found. Literally could not handle Mad Max at all that game, forcing, or at least allowing so many pressures, sacks. Probably a big reason why the Chargers dropped that last game last season. Very difficult to watch. We can really only hope that Trey Pipkins holds his own in this game, doesn't allow a ridiculous amount of plays from Max Crosby this game, but it's definitely one that Justin Herbert's going to have to keep an eye out for. Watch that right side of the line. The moment it collapses, try to buy some time, because if the Chargers have one weak spot on that offensive line, it's definitely a right tackle. Maybe the Chargers, if they feel confident enough in the rest of the line, can have Zion Johnson get in there to help. Maybe get Austin Ekeler out there to help chip that guy. But at the same time, this is Max Crosby that we're talking about. Now, what about the other side? We got a Chandler Jones to worry about now, too. The Raiders, they went out and loaded up as well. Well, of course, he's going to be facing off against mainly a Rashawn Slater, and I do feel a lot more comfortable with Rashawn Slater versus a Chandler Jones than I do Max Crosby versus Trey Pipkins. So he should be able to hold his own, but Max Crosby is going to be the highlighted guy. If I had to target one guy on the Raiders that the Chargers need to keep an eye on, it's going to be Max Crosby. What about offensively for the Raiders? Well, they do have that brand new weapon in the brand new car smelling Davante Adams, man. He's definitely going to be one that the Chargers are going to have to game plan for, especially with J.C. Jackson perhaps missing this week. If J.C.'s out, what's going to happen? This segment's called Who's Got Adams? If I'm the Chargers at this point, I'm taking a look because their defensive back room actually looks still really, really strong without JC, which is kind of saying something. If I'm the Chargers and you got guys like Asante Samuel Jr., Mike Davis, and Bryce Callahan on the roster, I maybe give this task, me personally, to Bryce Callahan, right? ASJ and Mike Davis are going to be great, but I feel like Adams is going to be a problem. He's going to require some veteran leadership and experience in order to maybe hold down a little bit. So if I'm the Chargers, I see a lot of coverage between Bryce Callahan, maybe Asante Samuel Jr. trying to cover Davante Adams if JC truly cannot take the field. As a matter of fact, I would kind of see the matchups as Callahan on Adams, Mike Davis on Matt Collins, I think, is their other wide receiver, or Darren Waller, and then Asante Samuel Jr. on Hunter Renfrow. That's kind of the way I'm seeing the matchups work out in my mind, at least. So Davante Adams on offense is the guy I need to highlight, and Mad Max on defense is the guy I have to highlight for the Raiders that the Chargers need to particularly game plan for and scheme for. Now, next up, the Chargers, though, they do have a super defensive weapon of their own in Derwin James, and this is going to be one to watch this year, man. This is going to be one to watch this week, as a matter of fact. This is going to be the first time that we see Derwin freely roam the field. I feel like so many of the moves that the Chargers made this year was with the plan of helping free up Derwin James. Let's make sure that he's that ultimate chess piece, and he'll be able to line up pretty much wherever. Edge, linebacker, slot, safety. There's going to be some space. Now, I do think that there's going to be plenty of him covering Darren Waller. As we see in this photo, the Chargers logged the pick as Derek Carr was aiming down sights to Darren Waller. That's going to be primarily, I think, where we see Derwin James, because he's the perfect counter for an elite tight end like Darren Waller. But at the same time, I think we're going to see some shared duties there with Mike Davis. I think Derwin James is going to be utilized as a pass rusher a couple of times at least this game. You may even see him line up in the slot. I do think we're going to see some of that flexibility we've been excited anticipating for Derwin James this season. And it really is just going to come down to all the pieces they've been able to assemble. I'm very excited to see what Derwin can do this game. I think Derwin logs a pick in week one, especially with how the Chargers are planning on positioning him. I think he logs a pick from over the middle of the field, just like we're seeing in this photo. So just kind of keep your eye out for number 3 out there. I think it's going to be a very fun one to watch. And then lastly, I did want to highlight some of the new dogs, right? Some of the new dogs. Because the Chargers, there's going to be a lot to look at, and there's going to be a lot of change to keep your eye on. And one of the biggest ones I did want to highlight was Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson, that defensive line. They're going to be going up against Josh Jacobs, very competent running back in the NFL. I want to see how they hold up. You can almost say that Josh Jacobs And the Chargers' poor run defense last season was a big reason why we missed the playoffs. I feel like Sebastian Joseph Day, Austin Johnson, they can go out there and really prove that this defensive line has been improved to make me feel a lot better going forward into week 2 versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Outside of that, Kyle Van Noy, I think, is going to be a very, very interesting watch as you see him right here. I think we're going to see plenty of him at inside linebacker, maybe a couple snaps of him at edge. He's going to be one of those guys where I'm like, I don't know. I see so much potential in this signing. It might go under the radar for a lot of people, but it's one that I think is going to carry a lot of, let's just say, underdog vibes because of how big the other signings were this season. Maybe went under the radar. I think Kyle Van Noy is going to show us what he's got. And then finally, the rookie, Zion Johnson. I think the ones that you're going to see of the Chargers rookie class this season, of course, are going to be Zion Johnson and Xander Horvath. I think both of those guys are going to see some pretty good playing time this week. Of course, a fullback's not going to see the field too often, but I do want to see what he's got in creating space for Austin Ekeler, maybe even getting a carry or two in short yardage situations. And then Zion Johnson, again, if he can help out Trey Pipkins on the right side, maybe Mad Max won't be as big of an issue, but you can never, write off a guy like Mad Max even if he is being double teamed. So finally, guys, to wrap up these videos, of course, at the end, we always give our score prediction. Of course, I'm just going to take my best stab at it. Last year, I think we ended up getting the score spot on. Let's see if we can do it again. So my score prediction for the Chargers versus Vegas Raiders is going to be Chargers 27, Raiders 17. I think in the end, the biggest X factor you got to look for in this game is your edge rushers on both sides. And as of right now, the Chargers have a much better looking offensive line where the Raiders definitely does not look up to par. And I think the combination of Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa creating consistent pressure is going to create mistakes out of Derek Carr. The key to this game is getting to Derek Carr early. If you can get a sack at Derek Carr in the first quarter, he's going to be rattled for the rest of the game. And I do think that's going to affect their offense. I do think Devontae Adams sees a pretty good day. I think Hunter Renfrow finds some success as well. But I do think it ultimately only adds up to 17 points for the Raiders. The Chargers, on the other hand, I do think, again, with a poor secondary and the weapons to tout, I think Austin Ekeler, Justin Herbert have themselves a fantastic day. I do think Everett finds a nice start to his season, leading to a Chargers score of 27. So my bottom line in this video, guys, this year's kicking off with one of the most important matchups of the season. And this is, of course, because it's against a division rival. The Chargers have themselves, we'll say, a pretty soft first half of the schedule, and that's very good for creating momentum. But the first 2 games of the year, vastly important, because these early games are going to be crucial down the road because they are division matchups. Against the Raiders next week versus the Kansas City Chiefs, it's going to be very important that the Chargers try and wrap up these early division games with a lot of success. And I do think a lot of this has to do with hitting the ground running. And I think a lot of this in terms of Brandon Staley's strategy and their execution was bringing in guys that understand the system defensively, especially, so that they can handle these early matchups with the, giving themselves the best chances of success. So pretty big game, very exciting year for the Chargers. Super stoked to see this season kick off. The Chargers versus Raiders. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think your score prediction is going to be, as well as if Khalil Mack logs a sack and how many would it be. Well, if you guys did enjoy this content, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. And remember to enter for the giveaway. Make sure you are subscribed. Only subs can win. And again, remember, if you are a crew member, you're automatically entered for that LaDainian Tomlinson jersey giveaway as well. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. We'll see you next time. It's Raiders Week, baby. As always, bolt up and stay frosty. Watch your back, Derek Carr, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa coming to feast.